So, yes, images. I mean, what a great thing that we have them. This is the first advent, I guess, in human history where we actually have them. And we are very fortunate, Christopher and I, to have, thanks to my mother, to have Nadine Tolstoy's things and Norina Machiavelli and the photographs that they loved and kept. And many of these photographs are obviously you've seen elsewhere, or perhaps were taken some by Elizabeth or other people. So, it's not that they took them and they're their photographs, but these were the ones that they loved especially. So that gives them added meaning, I think. I think this is a very beautiful one. I love this one. So I'm starting with this one in the 1920s. I'm not going to give a history of each one because I don't know the history of each one. But just to see them, and many of you may know them better than I, but this beautiful, beautiful photograph of Baba in the early days. And then, of course, this beautiful photograph of Baba in the early days. Nadine Tolstoy. Everyone knows Nadine Tolstoy. Yeah. So, you know who she is? Some people don't know Nadine. I'll just to say, we say Countess Nadine Tolstoy because she was married to Leo Tolstoy's son, Ilya Tolstoy, who was a count. Hence, she was Countess. And she, of course, was Russian. She was very devoted to Baba. I have a few images of her later, so I can say more as we get to those images, and you might remind me of anything, what to say. It's interesting about the Countess part, It sounds, for especially American ears, wonderful Countess. I mean, we love aristocracy over here because the Countess. But they knew, I think they knew this, so when they lived in New York and they invited people to their apartment, when Elizabeth, Norina, and Nadine had the apartment in New York, so they'd send out invitations, it would be, Countess Nadine Tolstoy, Princess Norina Machiavelli, and Elizabeth C. Chapin Patterson. So it would be, how to turn that invitation down, right? You get a princess, a countess, and a Chapin, which was no small deal. So they knew how powerful that was, and they milked it for what it was worth. So here's another this beautiful early photograph, isn't it? And you have. I can't see, but you have Anita in the middle there, I believe. Anita Viard, and you have Chanji and Kaka, and you have Baba's brother, Adi Jr., I think with Norina has her arm around him. And Ghani, Dr. Ghani. This is a beautiful, beautiful shot.
Are they restored?
Restored means old prints. Yeah, we just scan them as they are. Yeah, so this is the ones we have, and we scanned them to the best, or Christopher did actually. Now this is Norina's favorite picture. She loved this photograph for obvious reasons, and she's on one shoulder, and Enid Korff is on the other shoulder.
Who's on the other shoulder?
Edith Korff.
Oh,
Edith. Enid. I'm sorry, Enid. See, this is the end of the day thing. Enid, of course. I actually knew Enid Korff. Can you believe that as a child? How old am I? Really? I knew Enid Korff. Tell us something about Enid. I don't know. She was old. I was a child. I don't know what much of. I knew Tony Rothberg. Yes, she was our age, right? She was our age. She was lovely to me as a child. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know. Nothing about. She seemed a little austere, I think. I have to say, not the warm personality type. But all right, that's how she'll be remembered now. She wasn't very warm. All right.
Very unique.
You said keep it light. That's not it's your fault. All right, here. I'm starting to get giddy now. So here we are, another beautiful early picture. You have, I guess Herbert's there now.
Yeah,
Herbert Davy
yes.
is there
Next to Norina.
next to Norina. Oh, that's Quentin Todd. That's right. All right, Quentin Todd.
This is Norina, that's Enid Corf.
Enid Corfigan, who we now know was a very warm and loving person.
I don't know who this is.
Jal.
Joe?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Kaka's at the end.
At the end. Next to
Who helped Baba dress?
in those suits.
What's that?
Who helped Baba dress?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
They look like a bunch of gangsters.
You know, he did it for us.
So, a photograph you could just spend hours on. They're so wonderful. They have so many details. So this is lovely. This is an invitation. I should have Christopher up here because he knows more than I do. This is an invitation to Baba's birthday party, right? Was it 1938? Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, invitation to Baba's birthday party. 1938.
The Mirage.
Yeah. Isn't that great? I love that. And the schedule of events.
Where is the party being held?
It was this
Meherabad.
Meherabad.
MeherBabaLibrary.
Yeah.
Aaron
Aaron.
Notice it's a 3-day event.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a big event. Yeah. Baba is Krishna. And then this is a wonderful shot again of Baba at, I guess, Happy Valley must be.
Happy Valley.
This was Elizabeth.
This was Elizabeth's photograph, yes. Elizabeth loved to take photographs. So she took a lot of beautiful photographs that Wendy and Buzz are keepers of those. But we only have some because Norina had some of them, and Nadine. Then this is an early picture of the Western women dressed up in Indian in Nasik, yes.
1937.
Yeah, 1937, right? So you have Elizabeth in this photograph, and you have Kitty. You have I can't see. Guy Mai, Margaret. Is Margaret there? Where's Margaret? Yeah, there.
This is Ruano Bogoslav, and that's Margaret
Mother
and
Cass.
Rono.
Yeah.
And this is Rono's mother Nani, that's Norina,
I know.
and Delia,
Delia,
and
yeah.
Mary Backett,
Yes.
and that's Nadine Tolstoy.
Wow, good job. You didn't know everybody. Very nice.
Yeah.
I love it. Who's that? This is Baba.
The caves. I'm not sure which trip this was. It could be a Laura. We're not sure. I think probably Wendy and Buzz have more information.
I like that. Great shot.
Yeah. So there is Nadine Tolstoy with her hands on her ears. And then there's Kitty. Yes, Kitty in the corner. That's right. And that's Mara's sister, Franny. Now, this next series of images is all about Kippy. So if you're not interested in dogs, this is your time to leave right now. Don't like dogs. Cat people, I'm sorry. We have no cats. This is now the dog show. So the dog show. Amy, where are you? Yeah, dogs, right? So this is in your honor, Amy. But I was going to skip over all the dog things, and Christopher said, "Oh no, Amy wants to see the dog thing." So this is, now the thing about dogs, and there's always so many things to say at once, so I'm going to try to hone it in. Dogs and Baba were very important, right? All animals, but Baba had a special thing about dogs, and lots of dogs. And Elizabeth had a great thing about dogs, and all animals really. She was, she loved animals, Elizabeth. That was, we used to kid, but it was really true, and say, you know, if you were an animal, you were so much better treated at Del Ruba than if you were a person. Oh my gosh, the animals, you know, they had the run of the place, and she'd do anything. She took care of my turtle for years. Yeah, she'd climb up the stairs when she couldn't barely walk, and to keep it in the turtle room upstairs, and she'd pour water over the turtle to give it a shower. I mean, just unbelievable. So and she kept she had cats and dogs, and so what the thing is, so I could talk all afternoon about Elizabeth and animals, because her love for animals was unparalleled. I've never known anyone who loved animals. So she told me once, you know, she never talked about herself. I mean, I spent, I don't know how many years around Elizabeth, but she never said anything. And she wouldn't talk about the past, and she didn't talk about much about, she was all right now, and whatever she was doing for Baba, that was it. And that was all, and she talked about travel or places in the world. She loved talking about that. She loved talking about places, and but she didn't like to talk, and she didn't like to tell history and so forth and so on. Somebody might ask her if they were visiting, you know, oh, Mrs. Patterson or Elizabeth, what was it like to be in India during the blue bus thing? And she'd say, well, yes, you drove the blue bus, what was that like? And she'd, yes, well, I think I've written about that somewhere. Like, so that was how she was. So it was very difficult for her to say anything about herself, and so partly it was a family thing. She was never, in her family, they didn't talk personally much. So she did tell me this, though, about animals. And she said, it came up about, you know, something about the animals and so forth, and how much she loved animals. And she said, well, you see, when I was growing up, Father wouldn't let me have any animals, any pets. We couldn't have them in where we lived. They lived in New York and Chicago and so forth, and her mother was into decorating and, you know, so no animals. She said, I couldn't have any. But you see, when I came to Baba, he gave me my animals. He put me in charge of the animals. I said, so, you know, it was so sweet. So she was in charge of the animals, and it meant everything to her. So this is the lovely thing about Kippy, who was this wonderful female Boston Terrier. And Kippy was, of course, Elizabeth loved Kippy, you know, and all that, sort of little dog and everything. And then Baba called them to come to live in India. And the thing was that, you know, this was all new to them. And Elizabeth, oh, you know what to do about Kippy. Can I take Kippy? And people would tell her, oh, I don't know who it was that gave her this advice, but you know, no, Elizabeth, you know, this is an ashram. You cannot take a dog to an ashram. You know, you can't do that. You know, you understand you're giving up this and you're going to be with Baba. You can't. And Elizabeth was, you know, heartbroken. But Baba, she would, you know, she felt, well, for Baba, I will give it up. I will give up being with Kippy, and I'll leave Kippy behind. They thought they were going, you know, forever, right? Or for a long stay, you know, long till they took the boat in those days, and they arrived in Bombay, and Baba was there in Bombay to greet them when they came. And as Elizabeth told me, this, she said, they came off the boat and everything, and Baba greeted them and how happy he was they had come and left everything to be with him and all that. And then Baba, after he embraced them all, he looked at Elizabeth and he said, Elizabeth, where is the baby? Where is Kippy? Elizabeth said, oh, Baba, I thought I couldn't bring Kippy, and I'm coming to an ashram. Send for Kippy. Oh, how wonderful he is, isn't he? He's such a wonderful, there's no end to how wonderful Baba is, really. So wonderful. So, Kippy came to India. You see how here's Baba with Kippy. Yeah. Yes.
How did he come? On a
Ship also. Yeah. Those days, the slow boat to China, right? That was how you did it. Yeah. That part I don't know. So here's Baba holding Kippy. Now, later, they go back, right? And they go back and forth, And so Elizabeth is going to come back and bring Kippy this next time. So meanwhile, another dog had come into the picture. More than one dog, but another dog came into the picture. And so I guess it was Norina wrote this. This is her handwriting, right? So Norina wrote to Elizabeth that what had come up about the issue of dogs and Kippy coming. And so here's part of that letter. I know if I can read it from here.
Message from Baba. It is regarding dog visitors. He says, you know how he loves Kippy, but here is Chum, a monster of affection and jealousy. We all fear him. He's peculiar and unreliable, sudden mischievous whim. So letter goes on about how this dog could be dangerous for Kippy, and that Baba will leave it up to Elizabeth whether or not to bring Kippy, but just But here's what's so great about this, where it says, you know how he loves Kippy. Baba signed in that statement.
Yeah. We think what Baba did was Baba drew a line and put that line and then put his signature. But we think that's
emphasis.
Yeah. Baba then signed. Baba didn't sign that much. That more and more later he didn't sign much, but he signed this statement. Isn't that amazing? And of course she did bring Kippy, forewarned, she did bring Kippy, and they got along fine. Here is Elizabeth with Kippy and a bunny. It has a name. Wendy would remember the name. It rhymes with bunny, actually. I can't remember the name. Sunny? Sunny. Was it Sunny? Sunny. It might have been Sunny. Are we guessing or do we know? Guessing. Right. Yes. Let's call it Sunny. For purposes of discussion. We'll just say Sunny the bunny. And no test. And remember that Enid Korf was a lovely person. Just say, I'm recording this. I don't want her to come after me. Oh, God. I know. She's probably listening in. She's probably here. Yes. Yes. Sean is Enid Korf. I thought you looked familiar. Oh, my God. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, right. So this is Kippy in her cape. This is like how dogs are treated in our household. I'm just saying. Now this you may have seen this picture before, but this is one of the two of the most beautiful pictures ever of Meher Baba, holding Kippy. Isn't that beautiful? Look at Baba. And look at Kippy's eyes, right? This is,
I think they both look pushed out.
yeah, yes. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's one of the most beautiful photographs ever taken of Baba. And that love. That love. Oh.
My marriage is at stake.
Yeah, I've been there. I love being able to say that. All right, here's Kippy at play. This is Elizabeth's handwriting. Kippy at play, her world's a ball. Isn't that wonderful? And here's Kippy in a pensive mood, but with ball in front of her.
She has a sweater on. Oh, this is beautiful.
Is this
So I
Chum?
think that's the big dog.
I think this must be Chum. Or Canute or Chum?
Or is it a goat?
Canute? Could have been Canute, I'm not sure.
It's almost like a painting.
Yes.
Go.
It's a goat. Yeah.
Where is that?
You know, we don't know. We have no idea. We could lie and say we know, but we don't know. But they're walking the dog, that's all we know. Now, then, 1 year for Kippy's birthday, Kippy, all the other dogs sent Kippy birthday cards. Yeah. This is Mani's handwriting, and Mani, of course, Mani was quite young then, also. Yeah. Mani would have been a teenager. That's right. Yeah.
But look how she had the little stamps: Germany, MeherBabaLibrary, America, Paris.
Isn't that wonderful? Dear Kippy, many, many happy returns of the day from Charlie. I guess that's one of the animals. I'm not sure which one. All right. To my Princess of the Tower, a very happy birthday from Chum. Lucky Kippy, although we envy you, we wish you many happy returns of the day from Pick Me Up Kennel, which I think was the collection, you know, the bunny, the this, the that. Pick Me Up. Yeah. Darling Kippy, a birthday kiss and happy thoughts, Canute. And then this is from Khorshid and Mani. Happy birthday with love, Khorshid and Mani.
You think Kippy had a birthday cake?
I'm sure Kippy had a birthday cake. I think we can be pretty sure of that. Here's another beautiful image of Baba. That's a beautiful picture of Baba. And this is another one. I love this photograph. Yeah, you've probably seen this. This is a beautiful one. A Baba alphabet board. Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. And then a couple of photographs.
This was Baba was in seclusion.
Yes. With Muhammad Must, early days. And I've forgotten which must this is. Baba, it's in the Wayfair, I think, must be. Yeah. So Baba touching, and he's so beautiful. Exchange.
Baba's face
Behind the hand, yes.
I see. Okay. But Baba has turbine on. Is it turbine? Yeah.
That's Baba's hand.
Oh, that is Baba's hand.
Yeah, the must is the tall one. And this is Baba holding the bird.
That is.
It might be Mintu bird.
This you also showed us too.
And this, again, I think Elizabeth must have taken this. This is a beautiful sort of long view. It's beautiful. Baba standing on the hill. What hill is this, Christopher? Give it a name. Enid Koff Memorial Hill. No, we don't know. I told Christopher, if we show these photographs, we're going to get questions, and we have no idea. So sorry. This is Nadine Tolstoy with Baba.
It's a very special.
Yeah, it's beautiful of her.
See the tune of the
Yeah, you see Baba's. That's right. You could see the samadhi in the background. You see.
Oh, yeah.
Now there was a Meher-free dispensary before Dr. Gohair started Meher-free dispensary at Meherazad. So this is the first Meher-free dispensary.
In MeherBabaLibrary?
It's a MeherBabaLibrary. Yes, and here is Nadine Tolstoy with her first patient, who was a pregnant mother. They had a special facility for pregnant mothers, expectant mothers. And Elizabeth wrote on this. She thinks it's either 38 or 39. So even Elizabeth wasn't entirely sure.
This also your stand?
I think we may have, yes.
These are also in Awakener too.
And there's another image of the clinic, the first clinic. Yeah.
Very nice.
Here is Baba wearing Elizabeth's coat. So he asked to borrow her coat. I guess it was chilly or whatever, and so he wore this coat, and there are a number of images of him wearing this coat. And when Elizabeth asked Baba if she could have her ashes flown to India and placed near him at the tomb when she died, you see, Baba. So Baba, there's a back and forth about it. The point is, should she be there? Should she be at the center and all that? And Elizabeth wanted to be at Meherabad, and she wanted to be, where Norina was and all that. And Baba said he agreed with that. Yes, that's fine. But he said, you have to bury something at the center of yours, something of yours that must be buried there at the center. So this coat is buried at the center. So people think it's her grave, actually.
Yeah.
You see the plaque.
But that's the
plaque.
Yeah, but it's actually her coat is under the plaque. It's across from our house. Between Baba's house and Del Ruba, you're walking on the path. It's right there.
Is there a plaque or something?
There is. There's a plaque, and they keep it nice, and you walk in, and it just says Elizabeth. It doesn't say anything about the coat, but you just have to know this, that it's the coat. There's also something that you don't know, but there are also dogs buried around the coat there, because Elizabeth wanted to bury the dogs there. She didn't want to have people buried at the center, but she thought dogs should be buried there. So my dog that you saw earlier, Buff, the collie, she's buried there. But because of Elizabeth said she should be buried there. Beauty, who was their last dog, I guess, and lived to be very old. Beauty is buried there also. Jimmy is buried there also. Yeah. So this is, I want to make sure these, so I think I was telling Terry that I put these in. I just wanted you to see this beautiful, this now actually is a late photograph, relatively late, because this was their last trip to India in the late 1940s. Elizabeth and Norina went back to India to be with Baba. And actually interesting, Norina was finishing working on fragments at the time, which is a book, one of the things we published with some of her other writings. So she finished that thought transmission book in India, and when she was staying with Baba there. And so this is at that time, that last visit. This is a beautiful image of them. very interesting image of them in the 1930s in Venice. And they are on the balcony of the Palace Van Drammen. Am I getting it right? Van Drammen? Is that the right pronunciation? So this is Norina in her, she lived there for a period, Norina, at this house. She lived with Carl Waldmüller here. Her first husband, the great producer and play producer and film producer Carl Waldmüller. She lived with him here. And this was also the house where Richard Wagner died. It's an amazing place. So yeah, the great composer, opera composer Wagner.
Looks like they really love each other.
They did really love each other. They did really love each other. Yeah, they did really love each other. Very much. And Elizabeth and Norina. Yes, everyone knows the image. Okay. Who Baba sent back then from India in the early 40s to find a place, a center. So that is when they came back to the United States and looked all around for different places, and Myrtle Beach was finally the choice. So we're going to segue a little bit of a sort of culture shock. Quick segue to, years later, and here's Elizabeth.
She does look like the auntie.
Yeah, she looks like an auntie. She's auntie, mother, all rolled into one. I believe this is just as we were being introduced to Baba. So I think this is 57. So I was probably in this picture 7 or 8. And Wendy, who was always tall, she was 2 years younger than I. Yeah. And we called her Auntie Boo. As you've probably heard me say, Auntie Boo. And you might wonder why. Maybe you didn't wonder why, but I'm going to tell you anyway. We called her Auntie Boo because when we first arrived at Yupon Dunes, where they were living, in 1957, Mother took us to meet them, and Mother built up this whole thing that you were going to meet this wonderful lady called Kitty. I don't know why she focused on that. Probably because Kitty taught children. In her early career, she was a music teacher. And she was really very good with children. She was good with everybody, but she was really good with children, and she loved to teach children, to play games with children. And so Mother, knowing this, thought, well, to encourage us, be excited about going to meet these ladies, she emphasized, you're going to meet Kitty, and she's going to do this, and Kitty, Kitty, Kitty. So, all right, fine. So we arrive at Yupon Dunes, and there are these steps you go up to get to the front door. It's this Art Deco, beautiful Art Deco house that Elizabeth's father and Mother built on the ocean. And you arrive at the doorway, and there was a woman standing in the doorway. And I said, oh, Kitty? Kitty? Because we were there to meet Kitty. I thought, I had Kitty in my head. And she looked at me and she said, no, dear, I'm Elizabeth, but you can call me Boo. I said, because you see, when I was a little girl, it was very difficult for me to say Elizabeth. So I called myself Boo. So you can call me Boo. And so from that day forward, I always called her Auntie Boo. And she signed all of her letters to me, all her messages, Auntie Boo. Gosh, a funny footnote to that. I think it's a funny footnote. There's so much to say. Time's running out. No, there's a more time.
Because we started late.
Thank you. Grace. So years later, in the Atlanta Baba group, there's this Joe Harmon, a lawyer whose son Charles is my godson, and who's there in Atlanta still. So Joe, who passed away, but he was, just getting to know about Meher Baba. So he didn't know much and all that, but he'd come to our meetings at Emory University. I was in school, and he was older, but he'd come and we'd be all just hanging out, and he would be there. And he's a little buttoned down, but he thought, okay, you know, and he was drawn. So he'd come to these meetings, a lawyer in Atlanta, right? And I would tell stories and mention things about Auntie Boo this, Auntie Boo that. And so, you know, he had heard all about Auntie Boo. So he was going to call up and make a reservation to go and visit the center. And in those days, believe it or not, you called Del Ruba, and Kitty or Elizabeth would usually answer and deal. This is really early, right? And they would be taking down things. I mean, it's unbelievable. They did it all. And so he called up, and it just so happened that Elizabeth answered the phone. And he said, you know, I'm calling, you know, this is Joe Harmon in Atlanta, and he said, is this Auntie Boo? And he said there was this long pause, silence on the other end, and finally he heard her say, well, this is Elizabeth Patterson. The children call me that. And I swear to you, from that day forward, he always called her Mrs. Patterson. he never even went to Elizabeth, right? Yeah, he did. He was just, you know, from that day forward, it was Mrs. Patterson. But to me, she was Auntie Boo, and boy, I tell you what, I'm finally trying to write down all of the wisdom, wit and wisdom of Elizabeth, and put them together in a little thing, because so everything she came out of her mouth was really memorable, and so wise, and often very, very funny. She had a very dry sense of humor. She could be very funny. Yes. Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah, it is a great story. So it does give a lot of insight into how Auntie Boo or Elizabeth was. So one day a fellow comes to the center, and this is now in the 60s or whatever, and people were starting to come and all that. Maybe it was early 70s, I don't know. And he came, and in those days there were some unusual characters who would arrive. But the difficult cases, so people would come to the gateway, or Kitty would be there and all that. So Elizabeth didn't really meet or greet people when they first come generally, right? She was that. But the tough cases call out Elizabeth, right? I mean, something challenging, something difficult, call out Elizabeth. So, call out Elizabeth. So, so this day, this guy came and he announced at the gateway first, I guess. He announced that he had come, and he was a perfect master, and he had come now to take charge, you know, because he was now the charge man and all that, and he was, you know, perfect and all that. So, and the gateway didn't quite know what to say. So they called Elizabeth. They said, you know, this man, and he says he's a perfect master. Do we let him stay? What do we do? And all. She said, you just have him come over to see me. So she called. In the meantime, she hangs up. You know, he's going to come around. They're going to bring him around to Del Ruba. She calls me up. I'm next door. And there, she calls me up, and she liked to do this. She called me to have me come over, and I think she considered it training, right? And also she wanted somebody there, but she wanted me to be there. So she called me up. Now I want you to come over now. You know, it didn't matter what I was doing. Of course, I never spoke back to Auntie Boo in my entire life, and I never questioned whatever she said. It was like from Bible to me. So I dropped whatever I was doing, and I went over to the house, and I sat in the living room, and this man arrives, and she says, "Now, I understand you have some very interesting things to tell me." And so he started in. And he started talking about how he was illumined, and then he became perfect, and do this, and he was the perfect master, and so forth and so on, the charge. I don't know what he was saying. I was just, you know, what is she going to do with this man? And he was on and on. And she was listening very carefully, you know. She's leaning forward, listening. Yes. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while she'd interject something like, "Oh, that's unbelievable." And so it would encourage him, you know. He took it, you know, to go on. And she, you know, let him tell the whole thing. Whatever, I don't know how long it took. He told the whole thing. And she said, well, and finally he sat back. He was really happy, you know, that he had declared this to her and all that. And she said, well, you know, that's all very interesting, what you tell me. He said, but you know, and she said this with such authority, I can't describe it, some deep authority. She said, you know, you couldn't possibly be a perfect master. And for the first time since he arrived, he kind of, you know, like he woke up and he just sort of, you know, was taken back. And I saw him just, what? And then he got very interested. He said, genuinely, he said, why not? And she said, oh, well, you see, I've met one and you're nothing like him. And you know what? It was said in such a way, with such love and so straightforward and honest. He said, thank you very much, you got it from love. He couldn't say another thing. So that was vintage Elizabeth right there. And I can tell 1,000 of those. I mean, she always had, it wasn't just that she had the right thing to say, it was also how she said it. It came from some place, you know. Anyway, she had weight, gravitas about what she said that nobody else ever had that I knew. So we have, I guess, a little time for a few more stories and images. This, of course, is now 1958. This is an image from the famous children's birthday party.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, certainly.
Who's the lady with gigantic black glasses? I
Where?
see her every time, all over the left.
This one over where?
One all the way to the left of the flowers.
Almost behind Eric.
Almost on the
white
left.
dust.
Oh, you know, that's a good question.
She's got these big, I always see her, she's got these big black glasses. And I always,
I'll have to ask somebody who, I don't remember.
okay.
I don't
Thought
remember.
I'd ask.
No, I'm not sure. I know some of these people, but you know, so I don't remember. This is, we were having our cake at the birthday party. And so, you know, this you've seen, oops.
That was quick.
This you've seen?
Oh.
Yeah, yes, I know.
It was a good one.
This is my favorite picture.
And us too.
I wonder why. Why do I love this picture?
This is 3B.
That's 3D.
Yes, 3B, right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Yeah.
vignette. So I wanted to tell you how this picture came to be.
Yeah,
Because I actually know the story behind this picture. So this picture was taken by my mother. Now the thing you have to know is my mother had no mechanical ability. She's like Kitty that way. You know, she couldn't, nothing. I mean, didn't matter how simple the camera, whatever. But this, in those days, of course, you had to set the thing in the light or something, right? It wasn't like automatic. So she had this new camera. She was going to take all these photographs. And she just, you know, she tried and all that. So she took all these photographs, and they all came out black. Because she didn't know what she was doing, or she put her hand over the thing. Really? And she had no idea. You can even see here a little bit of that, right? This is the only photograph she took in 1958 that survived.
Oh, wow.
It actually came out as a photograph. So she took a lot of photographs. This is the one and only that actually came out. And the reason that it's so wonderful is because this captures the moment when I was first stunned by Baba ignoring me. And what happened was this: after I met Baba, which I described last night, and I was then wanting to be as near to him as possible, wherever he was, whatever building, how like that. And I would hang around outside and all that to try to catch a glimpse of him going from here to here, or whatever. I wanted to be in his presence, and physical presence. And so I would hang out, and of course I would be rewarded also for that. Because when Baba would come out, he might touch me, he might, just gesture or whatever, always. Now, you might say, well, gee, you just met him May 21st, and there's a few days, and it sounds like this is forever. It felt like it felt like forever, right? All these moments expanded in my mind. So, as a child, I had already built up all of this expectation that he treats me this way. It's just me and Baba. That's all it is. Me and Baba. I had no idea about these other people. I didn't need to talk. I didn't want to say things. I would look at Baba, he would look at me. We knew, right? All these other people, whatever they were doing, but we knew, we talked, and every time he looked at me, and every time he'd see me, and he would look at me, he'd point to me, he'd go like this. He did this in 62 also. Every time he'd look, and then he'd touch me and all that, and I would try to touch his hands or whatever, and that's how it was. And this was like a few days, and I was already, this is how it is. We have this connection. It's Baba and me, right? Well, one day he gets out of the car in front of the lagoon cabin, and he's being helped. The sticks you see behind him, he's using the sticks, and he is going toward the lagoon cabin, and I, of course, have planted myself. I'm waiting, because I'm right there in the path, and he's coming by. He comes right by in front of me, and he ignores me completely. Goes right past me. And I was devastated. Oh, my heart was broken. And without thinking, I reached out and I took hold of his Dhamma. Like that. Without thinking. I mean, if I had been thinking, I wouldn't have done that. Or if I had been older, I wouldn't have, of course, done that. I mean, it was spontaneous. I'm saying, it was probably, I don't think I pulled hard, but I just couldn't help myself. I reached out and took hold. And Baba stopped. And then he smiled. And he said, come.
Oh my gosh.
And he caught me up in his arms. You can see, I'm crying, right? You can see. I'm so happy. I was so upset and so happy. And Mother took the photo at that moment.
Great story.
And look at that hand.
Wow.
The hand of God.
Really?
Look at
So
that.
tender.
So beautiful. And that face.
He's looking right in your eyes.
Yes, he's looking right at me.
That's the compassion.
It's almost like the Michelangelo. I mean, it has that same.
And I learned from that day forward, never let him go by. Never let him, always, make Baba pay attention to you. It's really true. So this is another image. Oh, there's so much to tell. So this is I'm holding the door, as you can see, for Baba. And then Baba, this is this day, I think, is the day, pretty sure this is the day, that, I don't know who took this photograph, that Baba drove off the center to my mother's theater nearby. And it was the day my sister met Baba. So this would be May 22nd now. And what happened in that drive is really kind of hard to believe that it happened, but this is how I remember it. I can't say, but this is actually how I remember it. I thought years since, well, did I remember this right? Was it really happening that way? I know I remember the first part right, and that is that when Baba got into the car, Elizabeth was driving as usual, and I'm standing here. Baba, I'm standing at the window, and I'm very anxious, because I want to be with Baba. I guess I must have looked something anxious or whatever. You could see a moment in one of the films where I'm going like this, and I look anxious, and Baba's in the car, and Baba looked at me through the window, and then he stopped Elizabeth from driving away, and Baba said, "Come, sit with me, drive with me." So Baba got up, moved his seat, and moved over into the middle, and let me sit next to him. And I didn't think till years later how, Baba had a terrible hip thing problem, right? And how, here's Baba, right? He can barely walk. And there's this thing in the old cars, the hump in the middle. So here's Baba moving over so that he has to be up on this thing so that I can have a place to sit. I had no idea. So how sweet he was. So I got in, of course, and then we went to the theater, which is very close by, and for some reason that I still to this day, this is the part that doesn't seem like it happened. But Kitty was there and in the back, and I remember that she said something about my parents, and how they would hope they would come back together. I don't know, why would she say that? Kitty actually would say things spontaneously, so it could be like that. But anyway, something came up, and all I can remember in my mind's eye is that Baba turned so that he's looking, you can see in the back, but he's facing me, and Baba goes like this.
Oh.
And Kitty said something like, oh Baba, oh yes, but they need a father, they must have a father. And Baba, I am their father. I am their father. So, and from that time on, that's how it was. He was that. He would send me a beautiful message when my dog died. He sent me a cable when I graduated from high school. And, he was in deep seclusion. I'm sure he had other things to do. But he never forgot anything. Okay, so we're going to end in a few minutes. We'll end with 62. That's too much to say. So you saw this earlier. This is now East-West Gathering. So I actually then will go to the end of 62, okay? The end. Skip over everything, because we can't say everything. And the end of this story, many of you have heard me tell this because it's one of the most beautiful stories, not because it was something that happened to me, but it was because this is how Baba, it's one little example, and you all have your own examples, so you will immediately recognize this. Everybody in this room will recognize this. Baba knows the heart, and he responds. He knows something deep in our heart, and he will find a way to respond. And he does it in a natural way, in a beautiful way. So that's why I love this story so much, is because it's about how Baba It's an example, little teeny one example of what we all experience with Baba. And the reason I tell the story is because we sometimes forget that he knows our heart, and he will answer our heart before we even know that we are asking. He does that. So he knows our heart, and he knows how to best respond. So this is the last morning with Baba in the East-West gathering, and my little tiny heart wish that I didn't tell anybody. It seems so small now when I say it, in a way. But, when I came to India in '62, one thing, I had a number of things I wanted to do about Baba, which I won't go into, but the one that I'll share with you now is I wanted just to have a chance to touch his feet. That's all. I wanted to touch his feet. And, in India, of course, that's typical. They touch the feet of the master. With Baba, though, at least certainly in '58 there was no touching of the feet, right? There was no bowing down and all that. Baba didn't have it. And he didn't have Westerners do it anyway, so when we were with Baba, now I'm sure that, I'm sure that if I had been more aware, I could have found ways to do that anyway, right? But I was a very self-conscious child, very self-conscious, and very introverted. I'm still very introverted, and still somewhat self-conscious, but I was really self-conscious about everything when I was a child, to the point where I would be paralyzed sometimes in public because I was so self-conscious. And I would never have taken it on myself to do something like that, even if I didn't see other people, the Westerners, doing it, so that was one thing, but it was also just, I would not myself presume and touch Baba's feet in some way. But I wanted to. I had this longing. So here we are, last morning of the gathering, in the East-West gathering. And the Westerners are with Baba in the mornings, and this is the last time we were with him in that gathering. And Baba gets the idea, or he says for his brother, Baram, who's taking a film, he says, Baram wants us to go outside, so he can take a film of us, outside and all that. And Baba says, so we're all going to go outside, and a little activity, so we get up and we go outside, and this is this time, and you see Baba there. We saw an earlier version of this, and there's Marvin Camden kneeling next to Baba, and Mrs. Deuce, Ursula Deuce, is there with the red slitter, and Margaret, and Henry Kashali, and all these people. Ginny and Mike. LePage, the LePage children are there. Wendy, my sister, is there. Larry Karash, everybody. We're there. And then Baba comes back inside. You can see how self-conscious and different I saw all of this than maybe other people. I was not aware of what other people were doing that much. But I felt like I had to dress up for Bob. So I brought my little mustard coat with a little emblem on it. Real fashion statement, let me tell you. And a tie and all that. Nobody wore a coat and tie, nobody. So, but I felt like, especially this last day, I should dress up for Baba. So I'm all decked out here, you see, and my coat and tie. And Baba's coming inside. So Baba comes back inside. He sits down again on the sofa. We all sit near him. I take my usual spot over here next to him. And Mother's right here. Wendy's next to him also. And Erich says, "Charles!" And I didn't look up because first of all, I didn't communicate with Baba like that. I just communicated with Baba. I didn't, and then usually Charles meant heard him. Because they were talking about the book and this and that, so Baba would engage with him about this thing or that thing. Heard him. So Eric said, "Charles," I didn't think, I just assumed, heard him. And when I didn't look up, Eric said, "Charles!" And I looked over, and Eric and Baba were looking right at me. Baba was looking at me like this. And Eric said, "Charles, Baba wants you to remove his sandals." And then I knew he knew. And so I scrambled down, got in front of him, and I took my time. And Baba didn't help me at all. No, he let me lift his foot and feel it, and take off each sandal so that I could touch his feet. Yeah. So, I never forgot, and I hope never will. Baba knows my heart, he knows our heart. Then Baba said goodbye, and it was very difficult, of course. We all had to have our last embrace and all that. Some of us hung back for the last minute and all that, of course. And Baba said a number of things. One thing he said, though, towards the very last, as I remember it, Baba said, he turned to Mother, started by turning to Mother when he started this, and he said, "Jane, don't be afraid, don't be worried. He said, I am the Christ. Open your eyes, and you will see me as I really am." And then he got up to leave. But then he sat back again, and he looked so helpless. The Christ. He looked so childlike. He looked up at Eric. And Eric said, "Charles, Baba wants to know, where are his sandals?" So they had been pushed underneath the sofa. And he couldn't leave. He had no sandal. The Christ. And yet the helpless one. The Lord of the universe. And the child and the broken one who suffered. All in one. And it was because it was all in one that he was that. That's how it felt. Yes, he is that, because he is all in one. And that's what makes him that. And so I scrambled down, and somehow, I don't know how, I got them back on his feet. And then Baba got up to me. And we walked out. The only time, the mornings, other mornings we would leave and then he would stay this morning he left first and he walked out through the crowd. And I just remember watching him go like this, and that little pigtail in the back with a pink ribbon tied on it. And it was so beautiful. And then his sadra and the pink, and then he was gone. There's so much more to say. There's so much more to experience about them. It's never ending. But I think I've taken the time that I should take. So thank you so much for letting me share. Bye.